Yes.
Surprise, motherfucker! The king is back!
Yes, the king is back. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? I'm going to take a very quick moment to say good morning to Frank D'Angelo over at Diacon Demo, all the way down under, because I came back from the Netherlands to find that. Thanks, Frank. I've got a Christmas card all the way from down under. Thank you very much indeed for that, Frank. Also got a very nice calendar as well, which will be going on probably over there somewhere, I would imagine. Thanks for that, Frank. I think that might actually be my first Christmas card this year, and it's all the way from down under. Many thanks indeed. Good morning, everyone. How the devil are you doing? You need to make the most of this look here, because these glasses are going. Due to pick up my prop, I've been using these pound shop glasses for about 3 years now, and my eyes have finally said, enough is enough. Go get yourself a proper pair of glasses. I'll pick them up tomorrow. Hopefully, I will actually be able to see you as clearly as you can see me. Fingers crossed, we shall see on that. Yes, fresh back from the land of the windmill and the tulip and the wooden clog. The Netherlands, really fantastic trip. Fantastic hotel, good food, great people. But I stumbled upon, this wasn't the reason I went, but just happenstance, I stumbled upon an exhibition of construction equipment dedicated to all things future fuels. So hydrogen and electrification. And I'll be telling you more about it at the end of the show. But one of the things that struck me about it was the fact that the Dutch are that far further down the line than we are, with all things electrification and hydrogenization, that they can actually dedicate an exhibition, a standalone exhibition. No, none of your nasty old diesel, just purely electric and hydrogen. Even while they're doing that, we're sat on the fence telling you every reason why we won't go electric. I'll be discussing that more at the end of the show. Had a couple of comments in here. Who have we had? We've got Chris Ford is here. Good morning, Chris. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Let me press your button. What? That's the wrong button. Let me try that again. Let me get to the right place. Let me press Chris's button. I'm going to press Ken Hatcher's button as well, because he too is here. There is Ken. Mark Whiting is here as well. He too has a button. Come on now. There's Mark Whiting's button. Gary Muirhead is here as well. Gary also has a button, a dedicated. You see, you know you're in the gang if you actually have a dedicated button. And Jim Turner is here as well. Also in the gang, also has his own button. Just also very, very quickly, I'm going to show you this. I know not all of you are demolition related, but I'm going to show you this nonetheless. You know, this demolition project that's been on and off, the Marks and Spencer's flagship store on Oxford Street in London. It was on, then it was off, then it was on, then Michael Gove kicked it to the curb. Well, now Angela Rayner has given it the go-ahead, which kind of goes to prove that this idea of embodied carbon and allowing demolition projects to go ahead or not is not actually down to a hard and fast set of rules. It is down to perception or the mood of the Home Secretary when the project lands on their desk. I'll be doing more on that over the weekend, so watch this space. Yeah, about time we got on with the show. So should we do that? Without further ado, I'm going to roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. It is Friday, the 6th of December. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition. In today's show, Develon doubles down on Demolition. Liebherr telehandlers go into battle. Le Grand Demolition revisited. I don't know the French for revisited, so you just have to make do with that. And the tricky task, very tricky task of safely using explosives within a nuclear facility. Plus, in my morning monologue, I'm going to explain why the Dutch are stealing a march in electrification and why we would be wise to follow their lead. But before we get to all of that, we do have the small matter of today's mystery machine for you, which is, well, after this. Right, mystery machine time. Have we seen Dan Cullen in the chat? I don't think we have, which means it's wide open. I can tell you, in December, we are now, this is our third match of December, and I am already 6 points up. So somebody needs to step up to the plate. So here is your mystery machine. There you are. That is what I need you to identify. I'm looking for a make and a model. Listen, country of origin as well, if you'd like. I'll leave it entirely up to you, but we are looking for a make and a model to get you 3 points on the board. Our friend Mick has just joined us. He too has a button, which I can prove by pressing that very button there. Good morning, Mick. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Jim Turner, going back to the Angela Rayner thing. It also sounds like these decisions are not being made by anyone that has a clue about things they are in control of, but that's just standard politics. Yeah. And this relates, just in case you're late arriving, it relates to when I can throw it up on the screen. There you are. This was a proposal that M&S put forward. They wanted to demolish their flagship store on Oxford Street and replace it with something more modern and more in keeping and also more environmentally sustainable and everything else. It was declined, then it was back on again. Then Michael Gove stepped in and he decided, no, that's not going ahead because of embodied carbon. And now Angela Rayner has decided that Michael Gove, as I think we all suspected, is a bit of a pilchard, and has decided to put it back on again. Now, for any demolition contractor involved in that, good news indeed. And nice to see Angela Rayner actually seeing sense on the thing, because apparently the embodied carbon they were so concerned about would be offset within 11 years. Well, bearing in mind that build is going to last for 100 plus, 11 didn't seem like long to wait to offset your embodied carbon. So we're getting some good sense. However, it does point out, as Jim has rightly said, when I can find his comment, these decisions are being made completely in isolation from all good sense within demolition anyway. But they also do seem to be made based on interpretation or perception or mood or to match public sentiment. Not actually, it's not like the rules say that amount of embodied carbon is okay, that amount is not okay. It's not. It's just, how do we feel today? Oh, yeah, we will allow that one to go ahead. So it's a nonsense, I tell you. I'm going to go back to remind you, well, there is our mystery machine, by the way. Let me take that away. Show you a smidge more. That is the machine I need you to identify. While you're doing that, I'm going to remind you of our question of the day, which looks a bit like this. Yeah, I'll come back to that in just a second. I'm not going to say good morning good morning? Probably good evening to Noble Work Australia, who've just joined us over on Instagram as well. And good morning to Dennis Young as well. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Yes, question of the day. Quite simply, how do you like your eggs? And I've put here, how do you like your eggs in the morning? Doesn't have to be in the morning. You have them any time you're down, well, please. Are you a scrambled sort of guy? Are you a poached person? Are you a fried egg fella, or are you just plain hard-boiled? Personally, bit of a fried egg person. In fact, in my humble opinion, a fried egg sandwich is one of the, well, particularly with brown sauce, is one of the high points of human development. Also one of the best ways to start the day. But what about you guys? How do you like your eggs? We've already had a few answers. See, Gary Muirhead, it's a good shout. hard-boiled eggs with toast soldiers. Yeah. Loads of butter, loads of salt. I'm all about that. My other half is saying I love poached eggs or a mushroom omelette. Yeah, see, that's not just your eggs. You see, you're stirring in additional ingredients. Ken Hatcher is saying, what eggs? Any ones you like. Question of the day, I kind of knew Chris would come up with that. Unfertilized, fried or poached with the rest of the full English. Indeed. Now, we said that Dan Cullen was missing, and Mick says, I think Dan is getting strange requests from certain middle-aged women going by his last post on Facebook. Don't know what that's all about. I need to go and have a look. Let's have a look. Mick is going for cooked. So it's a pretty good starting point. Ken Hatcher is going scrambled. And Mick is also going for this. Still working out how Starmer is going to get 1.5 million houses built with the skills shortage. Yeah, I don't know if you saw this. Basically, he is, part of his pre-election shtick was to say we're going to build 1.5 million new homes over the next decade. I think the entire construction industry went, you're not. But he, rather than listening to people that actually know these things and looking at the skill shortage, the scarcity of some materials and all of the challenges, Keir Starmer has come back and go, I said about that 1.5 million houses? I mean it. Every single word. The man is a lunatic, I tell you. We're going back to the mission machine. We've got a Shandong. Well, somebody's got a Shandong, an MYXG. It is not one of those. We also had another one here somewhere. Who was it? Sure, we had another guess on this. Was it Jim Turner, I think? Yes, he reckons it may be a Wackenhuysen 3-ton dumper. It is not. It is not one of those at all. Shall I show you a bit more? There you are. It has wheels. Good morning over on Instagram to Garvin. One of the finest gentlemen of the industry. Morning, Galvin. Thank you very much indeed for being here. And it's good to be back. I'll tell you all about my Dutch adventures a bit later on in the show, but we do need to start the show. As Danny Baker used to say, the show will start any moment, I promise. Well, it's about to. Here we go. One of the things about selling equipment to the demolition industry is you kind of got to be in it to win it. That's the absolute truth. And Develon are most definitely in it. Will they win it? We shall see. Garvin has just said, morning, you handsome devil. I think he must be talking to one of you as well. And Crane Hub, Crystal Mace has just joined us as well. Good morning to you, gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Sit back and admire Develon, whatever you want to call them, in demolition. What the hell happened there? I may have to revisit that because apparently I've only got 14 seconds of about a minute and a half video. I'll try that again at some other point. But while you're doing that, let's have a look at this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
We're going to press on. I'm going to go and see if I can find a longer version of that because I don't know quite what's going wrong with it. But I am about to show you, we're sticking with demolition. I'm about to show you a film, and I'm going to show it to you for two reasons. First reason is that the film details a complex explosive demolition project carried out inside the turbine hall at Sizewell A nuclear power station, which you'd have thought was fairly challenging in itself. I'll tell you the second reason for showing you the film right after this. So, yes, I said there was two reasons for showing you that. Obviously, the first was the fact that it was an explosive demolition inside a nuclear facility. But the second reason for showing you that work was actually carried out by Erith, or for Erith, on behalf of Erith, should I say, by Precision Demolition Company, or PDC as they're better known. And I'm off to see PDC on Monday next week, just as soon as Monday's show is over, in fact. So I'll be recording a video interview with the guys there. I'll be bringing that to you at some point in the future. Now, Develon went hideously and horribly wrong. So I'm going to attempt to do it again. Let me just stop that. Stand by your beds, because I think I should be able to play it straight off my hard drive with any luck. Bear with me 2 ticks. I've just got to find the damn thing. This is the right video. Well, I hope that was playing for you, because it wasn't playing here. I've had no comments to say that it wasn't, but it just froze halfway through. Obviously, I don't know, a jinxed video or something. Going back to Mick saying this about the plans, or the Labour Party plans for constructing this 1.5 million new homes. Best part of it all, he says, they're on about apprenticeships. If I remember rightly, you do most apprenticeships for a 4 or 5 year course, so the numbers don't work. Yeah. Gary Muirhead saying, is it just me or has the video stuck? I think it did stick. Yeah, froze there too. Garvin had it froze. I'll try again at some point. I don't know what went wrong there. I'm sure it's no reflection on the Develon brand. It's just one of those things that happens from time to time. If you're into demolition, stick around, because I've got some more coming from you in just a moment. And I know that this one works. Bear with me. You might recall a couple of weeks ago, we brought you footage of a French demolition project, which a bunch of tower blocks were felled. It's very, very quick, down and dirty video. Well, they've now released the proper video, which actually goes to show a bit more of how they pulled it off. Sit back and enjoy. Nice blowdown indeed. Totally agree with that, Mick. And Mostly Diggers, Garvin just said, love the water jets. Yeah, I've seen those live. Saw those. The first time I ever saw those was over in Portugal. Where was I? Porto. Do the job very, very good. A bit messy, but hey-ho, yeah, well, there's, 40, 50 years worth of dust to contain there. Gary Muirhead is saying, still nothing from Cabelco, Australia, about the two SK1300 machines. Not a word. I dropped them a line about 3 weeks ago, and I dropped them a line about 6 weeks before that. Nothing at all. I'm on the verge of giving up, to be perfectly honest. Maybe they've just accepted the fact that it's too far away to send a video crew, which is a damn shame because I'd have happily hopped on a plane and gone and done it. Jim Turner said, I've offered up enough land to build. This is Jim Turner, landed gentry. I've offered up enough land to build 150 houses onto an apprenticeship training provider, so apprentices can steadily build their way through a proper housing estate instead of doing non-productive college work. Pay me on a plot by plot basis as the houses get finished. That way, they'd be filling the housing shortage and the skills gap at the same time. See, outside the box thinking instead of just doubling down on things that can't be achieved. Kia, I know you watch this. Sir Kia, should I say? I know you're a regular viewer of this show. Get in touch with Jim Turner, would you? Sort your world out. Mick has just said, just out of interest, Mark, have you heard anything regarding the email I sent you? I did actually respond to that this morning, Mick. My apologies. For some reason, my regular email wasn't coming through on my phone while I was over in the Netherlands. So I've come back to, 230 odd emails, but I did go through them this morning and I did respond. I hadn't heard anything. I'll have a quiet word among my journalist type friends and see if they've heard anything. But I do suspect it's one of those things that they would be very keen to keep under wraps. Garvin has just said, very interesting idea, Jim. I agree. Yeah, just going back to that. Yeah, imagine that. Training provider, here's a plot of land, build the houses, teach people how to build houses. You solve the skill shortage and partially solve the housing crisis at the same time. See, it's what we need. A bit more sensible thinking. Mick says, problem being there, Jim, you asked for a cut of the profits. That's a no-no to the money men. Yeah, unfortunately, that is the way this industry works, isn't it? So, yes, shall we press on? What have we got next? We've only got one more film, actually. Yeah, we're going to battle with Liebherr in a minute. So I'll tell you what, let me refresh this. There is our mystery machine, which we still don't have an answer for. There's no way I can do the hat trick and win the first 3 of the new month. Is there? Anybody's got any guesses on that? I'll have to hear from you. Jim Turner says, I really don't think I'd be on Kia's Christmas card, Liz, seeing as the type of post I keep tagging him in. But maybe you do need to take a bit of I'm not you, Jim, but, politicians need to take that step back, rather than having this fixed mindset and this fixed idea of how the world works. Maybe go out and see the world and speak to people that live in the real world and maybe make your decisions from there. Crane Hub, I'm sure Tristan Mays must be joking because he reckons that our mystery machine could be a Cat D11. On wheels, do you think? As in the next video is our last video. There's a bit more, which shows you the cab. Anybody's got any clues on that? Otherwise, after the next film, I claim the prize. Let me take that away because I do need to play this first.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Before you go and buy a telescopic handler, you'd like to think that it had been thoroughly tested in some pretty harsh applications, wouldn't you? Military applications, maybe? Seems to be the way the Liebherr's going. I'd have just one concern with those. Given that camouflage paint job, I'd be worried about parking it somewhere and then not being able to find it again. Because, that's how camouflage works. Going back to Jim Turner's house building idea, no Mick, no cut of profits, just a standard rate for what the land is worth, but they get a better deal as instead of paying the landowner up front, they get to pay just before the house is saleable. He's thought it all through, Mick says, Jim, not sure if you watched Starmer in his speech, the man talks down to you. He is a condescending waste of time. Aren't they all? And Mick also says, what happens when or if the houses don't pass building inspections? It's a good idea, but personally, I would get the plot value up front, he says. Chris Ford says, thought it was a video from Ukraine just before the drone hits the target. Well, that whole mess of Ukraine and Gaza and everywhere else, at some point, it will need to be cleaned up. Really will. I can't believe this. I've won again. I don't know quite how I'm pulling it off, but there you are. That's the mystery machine that nobody got. And I can tell you, it is one of those. That right there is a giant G2500 HD, all the way from Holland, which is not entirely a coincidence because that's where I've been for the last 3 days, so I'll give myself 3 points. When Dan Cullen does come back, he's got one hell of a lead to make up. Really has. Jim Turner, just going back to that, get rid of that. I'm not going to bask in my glory any longer. I wouldn't give him a gumboil if he had a mouthful, he says. He stands for most of the things he stands for the things I'm mostly against. He's not the problem solver, never will be, whilst he's got a hole in his arse. And he'll always have one of those. That's what he talks out of. So not a fan then, Jim, no? No? I mean, clearly you probably won't be on his Christmas card list. I'm guessing it cuts both ways. I guess you're not looking up the postcode for number 10 Downing Street to send him a Christmas card either. Don't blame you at all. Right, I'm going to take that away. I do have one thing to do before we all go away for the weekend. So that's just about it for the main That is just about it for the main part of today's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like into my partially Dutch morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, then please do stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues, and I hope to see you again very soon. Monday would be good. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I shall return immediately after this. As some of you know, I have been in the Netherlands for the past 2 days on a mission that must remain top secret, at least for the time being. However, while I was there, I briefly gatecrashed a mini exhibition dedicated to construction equipment utilising future fuels, including both electric and hydrogen fuel. And notably, the exhibition was not some hippy-dippy crystal ball-gazing affair. This wasn't about the possible tech of tomorrow. It was about alternative fuel solutions that are available to purchase, own, and rent today. It's wholly appropriate that an event of that nature should take place in the Netherlands because the Dutch have deservedly earned a reputation for being among the most strident when it comes to all things sustainability. As only one of 2 Brits in attendance, as far as I could tell, I was struck by the difference in attitude between my fellow countrymen and by my Dutch hosts. When presented with the means to reduce the environmental impact of construction and demolition, the Dutch, and also the Swedes, the Danes, the Finns and the Norwegians, say, why wouldn't we? Faced with the same promise of sustainability and carbon reduction, the British response thus far has been, why should we? The Dutch and those in Scandinavia seemingly look at factors like battery charging times and plan ways around them. Us Brits, meanwhile, use such factors as excuses, reasons to maintain the status quo. We'll consider electric when we can do a full day's work on a single charge. It's just one of the many reasons presented to allow us to continue to jeopardise the global climate. Now, by their nature, we Brits are conservative, or at least we've become so. We embrace tradition and are often reluctant to change. And it seems the only way we'll actually make any significant change in the fueling of our construction equipment is if that change is mandated or legislated. Now, such an approach feels at odds with this nation's once glorious and innovative past. And it's also out of step with most of the world's major decisions. It's also out of step when most of the world's major decisions are being driven by the need for sustainability and carbon reduction. But it also shows a lack of ambition that could prove costly in the long run. Now, make no mistake, switching from diesel to electric or to hydrogen brings with it a multitude of challenges that includes potential changes to working practices and schedules. It will also require a great deal of upskilling and training, not competence card, not worth the plastic it's printed on training, but practical, meaningful, hands-on training, the type of training required to extract every last watt of power and every last bit of value from batteries. It will also require companies to invest in new infrastructure to help keep those batteries charged and to manage the energy they produce. Operators will need to change their operating practices. Mechanics and fitters will need to learn a whole new power unit and driveline. Those changes will take time. Rome wasn't powered in a day, as they sort of say. So it feels like we're currently wasting valuable time, sitting on the fence and actively seeking excuses to stay precisely where we are. Now, obviously, the key concern here is that we are knowingly continuing to harm the planet. We're also putting off until tomorrow, or 2050, what we could and probably should be doing today. What strikes me as odd and frustrating in roughly equal measure is that the UK and demolition industry's refusal to see the inevitable switch away from diesel as an opportunity. Rather than seizing a first-mover advantage, the UK seems content to allow the Scandinavians and the Dutch to do all the heavy lifting while we watch from the wings. But make no mistake here, the writing is on the wall for diesel, but as an industry and as a nation, we're refusing to read the signs. And yet, this is merely another step along a well-trodden path. As an industry, we've already embraced Stage 3, Stage 4 and Stage 5 emissions reductions. We've seen low-emission zones morph into ultra-low emission zones. And while we've done so grudgingly at times, we've embraced each of those changes. Surely the time has come for us Brits to put on our big boy pants and embrace just one more change. It won't be quick and it won't be easy. Truth be told, we may never see the benefit ourselves, but our children and our grandchildren will. And surely that's good enough reason to go Dutch. There you are. That was my morning monologue. So over here we had, I don't know if you remember, a few years ago we had an exhibition here called Future Works. It was an offshoot of Plant Works, and it was all about technology and future fuels. It was okay. It was a very focused, not Plant Works numbers of visitors, but it was it was okay. But it was, here's what might happen. Here's what might be coming in the future. Go over to the Netherlands, and this is what's happening. I was hoping to show you this, but I couldn't get the bloody photograph to fire across. Bear with me 2 ticks. I'm going to very quickly. I don't know how well you can see that, but that is an excavator that is available on hire from a company called EcoRent. EcoRent They specialize in electric equipment. There's another one. That's another electric-powered machine. Again, you can rent that today. There was a company had a display over in Holland as well called Watermelon. Watermelon without the O. So Watermelon. I don't know. Hippie. But they are already, you can literally go online and you can rent a hydrogen fuel generator today. All of that is happening. Now, bearing in mind, I mean, the flight from here to Amsterdam and the flight back from Amsterdam to here, lumpy and bumpy though it was, 50 minutes. So they're up the road. They're closer than Birmingham. Or they're closer to me than Birmingham anyway. And yet that they seem to have just said, okay, well, this is the future. Let's run with it. And whereas over here, we are seemingly determined to find reasons to not run with any of it. Going back to the Mystery Machine, Chris Ford says, wouldn't have guessed that in a month of Sundays. Mick Norton has just joined us. Good morning, Mick. Thank you for being here. Jim Turner says, the houses will always pass inspection as they're inspected right through the build process. Plus, the whole build will be scrutinised a lot more than a standard house, as the tutors will be there constantly watching the students. Unlike site supervisors of this modern age. Yeah, Dan Cullen has just arrived too late to join in the Mystery Machine. I tell you now, Dan, it's 9-0 to me so far. Your absence has been noted, and I'm quite enjoying it. Not your absence, but the fact that I can win a few. Dan, are you being stalked or something, says Mick. Mick also says, anyone watch Questions Time last night? Yep, I had a sad night live. This question came up. If you believe what was said to the answer, we are leading the world. What, electrification came up last night? I didn't get it. I didn't get home until about midnight last night, so I missed Question Time completely. But if electrification came up, as I say, I realise that Holland, the Netherlands, is very flat. But you pull into any train station. We did a train journey from Amsterdam down to a place called Harderwijk, and every train station that we pulled into, thousands. And I'm not talking. I'm not doing this for expediency or journalistic license. I'm talking thousands upon thousands of bicycles. Everyone's on a bicycle because it's better. It's a flat country. They haven't got hills to worry about, and it's more environmentally friendly. It all works absolutely fine. And along comes, as Mick has just said, which apparently was the subject matter of Question Time last night, renewable energy. We seem to have looked at it. Listen, we've been through this discussion so many times. Every time I show an electric machine, how long does it take to charge? How long does the battery last? How long does the charge last? Can you get a full day out of it? And what happens to the battery at the end of its working life? What about the lithium recovery? We seem to be, what other excuse have we come up with? Whereas the Dutch have just gone, fine, let's go. Let's get cracking. Let's start using this stuff. And, this wasn't just at the exhibition. You're driving along, little municipalities, and there are electric excavators, electric mini excavators, beavering away, doing their thing. Why can they do it? And why can't we? And I did have a press release through, I don't think I'll be able to show it to you. Sweden's largest fossil-free worksite advances to 50% electric operation with Volvo construction equipment. Just 2 years ago, 10% electric machine operation was an ambitious target for Stockholm's pioneering fossil-free construction site. Today, that goal has risen to 50%, incorporating even more electric equipment from Volvo. Apparently, it's all part of the development or the redevelopment of the meatpacking area in Stockholm, and they are up to 50% electric. And yet here, we tell you all the reasons that this can't happen. Jim Turner, this is one of my frustrations, and I'll read his bit first. Let's have a look. We were innovative as a race, but it was mostly to be more productive. If electrification was more productive than diesel, then firms would be tripping over each other to buy them. The jump is far too wide for most firms. If this change had been planned better, rather, we'd have gone down the hybrid route much sooner and started building machines like the Hudig Tigon. So, first part, more innovative as a race. Can you imagine going back, 100 years or maybe even further, your Isambard Kingdom, Brunel, that sort of era, when we were building great ships to sail the world, when we were building great railways to span the world, when we were building, railways for ourselves and so on down the line. If anybody had said that the Dutch had stolen a march in terms of technology or innovation, there'd have been outcry. Whereas over here, we just kind of, whatever. Tristan Mays has just said, I'd rather just wait for the hydrogen technology than jump to the stand in all electric. The problem with that, and I understand that, and again, I think that is another excuse that's being used. Oh, why should we go electric when hydrogen is just around the corner? Well, it's not just around the corner. It's years away, possibly decades away. And as it stands today, we don't even know, we don't know how we're going to deliver it to where we need it to be. We also don't know how much it's going to cost. So, yeah, I understand the promise of hydrogen, and maybe hydrogen equipment will be better ultimately than electric equipment. But let's not lose sight of the fact of the reason that we are supposedly doing this. This is not for greater productivity. It's not for expediency. It is to save the planet. And does it not feel a bit churlish to look at the plight of the climate and say, yeah, but we'll have to recharge a machine in the middle of the day. That's going to be inconvenient. Not as inconvenient as sea levels up to your neck in 20 years' time, surely? And why is it I realise there are differences. I had a long chat with a couple of guys about this while I was in Holland. I realise there are very distinct differences between how we do demolition and construction here in the UK, in France, in Spain, in Italy, in Germany, in the Netherlands, in the States, in Australia, in New Zealand, in Japan. I realise there are differences. But how is it that the Dutch, the Norwegians, the Danes, the Swedes and the Finns have looked at electric machines and just gone, yep, count me in, whereas we've gone, batteries and lithium and hydrogen's coming. And we just seem to just clutching excuses out of thin air. And I mentioned on there about first mover advantage. If bearing in mind the fickle nature of politics, if Angela Rayner woke up tomorrow morning in a bad mood, which I'm sure she does on a fairly regular basis, and says, that's it, as of this afternoon, diesel is outlawed, it would take this industry months, possibly years, to train up its operators, to train up its fitters, to train up its salespeople, to train up its technicians in order to make that switch viable. That switch is available to us now. So, bearing in mind, we already know, 2050 or whatever it is, when we go carbon neutral and everything else, that's coming. That's 26 years away. You would have thought, or I would have thought, maybe it's just me, would have thought that somebody like a Lynch or a Flannery or a Sunbelt or somebody like that would have dipped their toe, even if it was some kind of a skunk works thing where they were operating it over in the background here, and getting ready so that they've trained up their operators, they've trained up their fitters, they've trained up their technicians, and they understand. So when we do finally switch off the diesel and switch on the electric, it's not a case of, how does this work? What do we do? Where does that go? Does that plug in there? And where do we get the charge? They'd have already done it. They'd have done it for years. The first mover advantage is there for somebody to go, yeah, I'll take that. Thank you very much. And the Finns, the Dutch, the Danish, the Norwegians, and the Swedes are all going, yeah, give it here. And we're saying, nah. Now we'll hang on, thanks. Jim Turner says, but we are sheep, Tristram, bred to be consumers, so they need to sell us battery tech first in order to save the world. Then tell us battery tech is bad for the world, and we all need to swap over to hydrogen now. It's nothing to do with the planet. It's about keeping the world economy moving. Maybe. And listen, I still have, my biggest question mark is not over charge times, because they will improve. It's not over the amount of charge that a battery can retain, because we've seen with these, that will improve over time. The biggest issue that I have at the moment, and I think a lot of people have, is where you're actually drawing the power from. If you're drawing the power from, if you're plugging in your fancy high electric generator into a diesel, or your fancy electric machine into a diesel generator, you've achieved nothing. You've basically gone nowhere. But there are ways and means. I've seen them. I've seen them. I've touched them. I've stroked them. These things exist. Now, is it about keeping the world's economy moving? It may be. It may be. But bearing in mind how small the world is today. As it stands today, if we were to go all electric, we as a nation would have to play catch up. I know there's a few electric machines out in the market. There's a few hire companies have got a handful here or there. But if we sit on the fence, there is nothing to stop a Dutch-based or a Danish-based or a Norwegian or Swedish-based or Finnish-based plant hire company coming over and, electric you want? Okay, we know everything. Here's the equipment. We've already done all the homework. And where does that leave Flannery and Lynch and Sunbelt? Tristram says, I'll stick with my Dodge Challenger till hydrogen gets here. See, we need somebody to go all electric just to offset his bloody carbon emissions. Dan Cullen says, have a great weekend. Stay safe, guys. I'll try to get on Monday. But it's... I'll be on the move. We shall see. Jim Turner says, if the world powers were bothered about the planet, they'd be encouraging us to keep older machines working and giving us carbon capturing equipment to retrofit to our existing machines. I agree with an awful lot of what Jim says. I agree with most of what Jim says. The choice we've got, Jim, you have a son. You may have other kids, but you have a son. At some point in the future, there is every likelihood that your son may have children. Would you not want them to arrive in a world where diesel emissions were a thing that we think back, like we talk about the old pea supers from back in the day here in London. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to say to your grandchild, you'd never believe, we used to start up machines and we used to judge their power by the amount of black smoke they kicked out. Can you imagine such a time? Now, run along in your electric machines and go do your thing. Because that's what we're talking about here. Mick says, country cannot afford to make the jump, Mark. There's been some real bad decisions on the infrastructure, and the costs are still mounting. The problem we've got, though, is sooner or later, this will be mandated. Don't kid yourselves. Now, I will probably have hung up my typewriter by then, but this is happening. This is not maybe. This is happening. And bearing in mind, we've already seen the groundwork for this. We saw the implementation of low emission zones. And I think to a man, we all went, oh, that's a little inconvenient, but okay, if that's the way. And then we went to ultra low emissions. We've embraced that. We went from stage 3 to stage 4 to stage 5 emissions. So we've had this gradual build up. Why is this final step such a challenge for everyone? Why didn't we dig our heels in at stage 3 or stage 4 or stage 5? And yet when it comes to making that next change, how much of it is a lack of trust in electrification or hydrogenization, and how much of it is just, this is what I've always known, this is the way we've always done it, I'm sticking with this? Be interested to get your take. You wouldn't have the pollution if it was filtered out. True enough. We have more free fuel falling out of the sky than we've ever had before. All we need to do is capture it and turn it into electric. It's very true. Something just flashed up and then went again. Crane Hub, Tristan May says, I saw a thing the other week said if you recycle and go electric, it only takes one flight to completely ruin what you've done. I've done 146 flights in 1.5 years. Yeah, but listen, let's not kid ourselves on that. That will be maybe not the next thing on the list, but that will be coming. I've already seen models worked out by the airlines. If you are the sort of person that flies to Torremolinos once a year and that is your travel, you'll still be able to do it for 200, 300, 350 quid. If you are the sort of person that's forever hopping on and hopping off planes, traveling halfway around the world, burning up huge amounts of carbon as you do so, you'll be taxed for it. The model exists. It hasn't been implemented yet, but you'll guarantee it will. No, we've done that one. We live in a throwaway society as the world has an ever-growing amount of people and they need something to do. True, and I know where you're coming from on that, but would it not be better if that ever-growing number of people were living in a world where they weren't breathing in unpleasant emissions that weren't eating away at our ozone layer and raising our sea levels? Would that not be better? I'm just saying. Anyway, I listen. I came back from Holland, mostly inspired and partly frustrated by the fact that those 50 minutes away by plane have just gone. Yes. Save the planet. Yes. Where do we start? Whereas here in the UK, we're looking at it and going, why should we start? That's where I'm coming from. Take it as you like. And while you're taking it as you like, go and have a good weekend, would you? I will be back. I think it's a full week of shows next week. Trying to figure out the schedule for the Christmas period. I did look at this last night, but now I can't remember what it looked like. Let me just throw my calendar up here. I'm planning to finish this show on the 20th of December, and I will be away then until the 6th. So I'm going to finish on a Friday, spend some time with the family and the grandchildren and what have you, and then I'm going to put my feet up for a little bit, do a bit of work in the background, and then I'll come back on the 6th. Don't forget, you can now buy, you can buy many things. Echoes of Dust, the book, is over on buymeacoffee.com/demolition news. You can also pick up the free book, which is Chloe's Christmas Digger. And I know a bunch of you have already done that. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. Please share them far and wide. It is free. I've not done it to make a profit out of it. I've basically done it so you can give it to some kids. Simple as that. But also A Sight for Sore Eyes, Volume 3. Also, buymeacoffee.com/demolition news. You can take your pick. There's other stuff over there as well. Or failing that, you may have watched this show and thought, that guy looks a bit tired. I'll leave him a tip because he's obviously working too hard. I'll be very surprised if anyone does that, but hey, you never know. Mick says, we have the highest cost for electricity in the world. My biggest fear of this battery lark is the cost and the way things are made and disposal of them after they are spent. I was talking to one of the battery people, and this is not the first time I've heard this. Talking to one of the battery people while I was in the Netherlands, and we were looking at a machine with a battery power pack in it, and I said, how long will the battery power pack last? And he said, well, longer than the machine. He said, it will slowly degrade. He said, but when that machine has basically given up the ghost and is no longer use to man nor child, you can take that battery power pack off, use it as a generator or an electricity storage or something like that, or to help recharge other electric machines on a site. So swings and roundabouts, people. Swings and roundabouts. And again, cost is going to be an issue. I don't know the exact. I think it varies from manufacturer to manufacturer, but I think there's about a 1.6, 1.7, possibly even a 1.8 price premium over a diesel machine as it stands at the moment. It's going to shift once that volume arrives and once people start to take it seriously and everything else, much the same as we've seen with the other electrical devices. Scale will influence the cost and it will get better. If you get a chance, go to Holland. It's really very, very nice. And go and have a look at some of these electric machines and ask yourselves, how can they do it when we flatly refuse to do so? You might return equally inspired like I have. Anybody? Anyway, that's an hour. Go have a good weekend. I'll be back here on Monday morning. 10 o'clock, as per usual. Mick says, have a good one, fellas. Stay safe. Double day. Oh, yeah, I could murder a double. So that's 50 years then. Unless machines aren't made to last like they used to be. Do you see what I'm saying? Jim, I do see what you're saying. I don't think, to be absolutely honest with you, I don't think we're going to be presented with that as an option. I honestly don't. As it stands, bearing in mind the environment within which some machines will work, particularly those working in an inner city environment, we've already gone from low emission to ultra low emission in places like London, Birmingham, Manchester, and so on down the line. So yes, it is ultimately more sustainable and more carbon friendly to keep running a machine that was built 10 years ago, 5 years ago, but just keep rebuilding it. And I don't believe that will be an option. I think it will be exactly the same as the car situation. Show me the certification on this car or this excavator or this wheel loader or this dump truck. Does it meet sustainability standards or emission standards, should I say? No, therefore it can't come in. And we saw the way that those ultra low emission zones have spread. Started in London, spread. We'll get exactly the same with electrification and ultimately hydrogenization as well. Do I care really? When this all comes in, I'll be looking at the grass from the roots upwards. Hey, listen, 2050, 26 years away, I'll be way past my best by then. I'm not going to hang on specifically for it, but I would like to see the day that the diesel is switched off. just to say, hey, see, I followed that story the entire time, and now it's happened as predicted. I mean, not by me, but predicted by other people. But 26 years, well, 25 years away almost. I'm not going to be looking great, but I mean, I'm not looking great today, to be perfectly honest with you, but I'll be looking even worse by then. Anyway, people, go have a fantastic weekend. I'll be back on Monday, 10 a.m. If you fancy a bit of light reading over the weekend, buymeacoffee.com/demolition news. Take it or leave it. Enjoy your weekend. See you Monday.